Hi all, I have a very instructive positional game to show you today. This is from the TCEC Season 17 Super Final, round 26. And the reason that I like to pick these games as great positional examples is that if the positional play can really be tested by the likes of Stockfish and still be effective, I think that's great evidence for it, being in reality really quite dangerous to use in our own games. So here Leela playing against Stockfish, round 26 of the Season 17 Super Final. The opening set, d4, d5. We have c4, c6, the Slav opening, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, black takes, a4, bishop g4, knight e5, hitting that bishop and hitting that pawn, bishop h5, f3, knight fd7, knight takes c4. Now this is the end of the book. And I'd like to draw you to that quotation I've chosen for this game. Pawns not only create the sketch for the whole painting, they are also the soil, the foundation of any position. Anatoly Karpov. Now many have said Leela's style is often like Karpov, Petrosian, some of the great positional players. It seems Leela can express great positional play. So in this particular opening, if we look at the pawn configuration, the soil of the position, does it favour white or black here in general? Well, there are pros and cons for both sides here, but one thing that might strike you about this is that white is missing the c pawn. All the other pawns are intact. You see that all the other pawns are intact, but that c pawn is actually quite significant here. It means there's a semi-open file. And what would make that semi-open file even more dangerous for black structurally is if this pawn wasn't supported by that pawn. If it became somehow a backward pawn, the c6, because then you would have a semi-open file with a backward pawn. And according to Wiki, and this is very, very theoretical now, I'm going to quote you something from Wiki. Backward pawns are usually a positional disadvantage, since they are more difficult to defend because they're unable to be defended by pawns. So in other words, that they have to be more expensively protected by pieces, and if they're being protected by pieces, those pieces might have other duties in the position. So Wiki kind of mentions that it creates a downside of tying up pieces. So let's see, is there a potential for this to become a backward pawn first? We have e5. This is actually quite a tactical shot in its own right here. If white plays here casually d takes, can you see what black plays? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video for 100 points, black to play here and win material. Okay, queen h4 check actually. Pardon me. There's a loose knight. That check picks it up, so white cannot really do that here. So Leela played knight e4, and this introduces a tactical threat of white's own, knight d6 check. So black reacts with check here. It's too slow to take here. Knight ed6 check, and it disrupts the king. And after queen takes d4, that's very pleasant for white indeed. So black tries bishop b4 check. We have bishop d2, queen e7, bishop takes, queen d2, and the queens come off. King takes d2, e takes d4. So this swaps. Well, there's pressure. There's still a threat of d takes. So if black, castled, then white could take this pawn and gain a tempo here. Knight ed6, gaining a tempo, and this means actually after g4, well, this position is very, very nice for white. So black really is forced into this situation of ed4, and now we have this situation where we do end up with black being saddled with a potentially dreadful backward pawn on a semi-open file. That pawn was kind of unlucky in the first case because white's only pawn missing meant there's going to be pressure on the c file, backfire on the c file, you could say. But even worse is that the pawn cannot be protected by fellow pawns. So the protection of that pawn is going to be expensive. It's going to be worth pieces. But is this just some theoretical, airy-fairy, ivory tower stuff? Can Leela really prove a positional advantage from this opening position? So let's see what happened here. We have rook c8. This position has occurred before in over-the-board chess, and this is a bit of a new move, a novelty move. There are two key stem games which caught my attention, and they both start with knight a6 actually. So knight a6 has been played in high-level over-the-board chess before. So for example, knight ba5, this follows the game Garry Kasparov against Stuart Conquest, who later did really well. I think he won one of the British Championships, became a Grandmaster later. At the time of this game, he was only 2260. That was in London, New York, 1984. And Kasparov played very niftily, rook a3, e3. It seems Kasparov knew his stuff in this in this variation, g4. And it seems here the black king started to get in trouble quite quickly, actually, after h4. The king can't go back, can't go to g7. Black's king was already feeling dangerously placed, and in fact here it's only got f4, so Kasparov is keen to try and mate the black king. He plays knight b7, and that introduces a threat on the rook as well as the use of d6. Rook d4, and there's a brilliant move Kasparov played in this position. I wonder if you can guess for 50 points. What does he play? Remember, the king hasn't got that many escape squares. Kasparov here played king f2. It's a wonderful move because it actually means king g3 will take away the f4 escape square and introduce two mating nets with knight d6 being threatened as a checkmate and bishop h3 checkmate. So the king is really precariously placed. Black tried this, rook takes, and after king g3, so not recapturing, so knight d6 and bishop h3, black had to lose material to give the king g5. Kasparov took that, and also as a perk is hitting b4. So this is just winning material, winning, and the game ended here. A very neat win by Garry Kasparov in this variation. And another game which caught my attention here was actually, instead of knight ba5, e3 has also been chosen in another high-level game. Adorjan, a 2560 GM against Glenn Fleer, another British GM, now 2505. This was in Siraz tournament of 1986. In this game, it showed that actually black can get really quite a good position. For some reason, the white king wanted to go into a self-mate scenario where it's running out of escape squares. It's a positional opening, but it's amusing that these two stem games feature the kings on very dangerous missions, it seems. Okay, the white king at the moment doesn't seem too unsafe until, bear with me, black starts to weave a kind of mating net pretty soon around here when rook d2 is cutting escape squares. And it stops being about this pawn completely. It's not about this pawn. It's about white getting mated here. This lack of escape squares. After knight f4, there's a big threat of rook g2. So you've got to bear these in mind. Human games, it's not just about a backward pawn. You know, sometimes you do get checkmated. It's like in this game. So these two interesting examples. Anyway, that aside, let's go back to this engine game. So this kind of novelty move was played rook c8, not knight a6. So what on earth is Stockfish's idea here? We see knight d6. So the knight doesn't even go to a5 or whatever. It goes back to d6, hitting that rook, and goes back there. And now here, actually, e4 is played. We see d takes e3, check, king takes, rook c7, knight ca5. So what is Leela doing here? Why are the knights like this? It seems the backward pawn could be an issue here, though. These knights are trying to padlock the c-pawn, surely, with b4. We see knight b6, knight c5, knight 8d7, and a bit of playing around. King goes back. So the king's pretty safe. The kings have been taken out of the equation, actually. Neither the white or black king are likely to be mated here. Unlike those over-the-board games we saw, the king is not factoring in. I think that's an important thing to distill out this initially. If you're going to be playing against backward pawns, you don't want other aspects like king safety coming in. I'm just turning off TCEC there. I'm still looking at this new TCEC tournament. It's quite fun. The super final should be, by the way, within 30 days, apparently. So anyway, we have here a position. King safety factors do not complicate the matters about this potentially this theoretical backward pawn is not so theoretical if there aren't all these other issues to worry about. Okay, so we have bishop e2, knight d5, rook ht1, so that kind of pins that knight to that one. Knight e5. The black knights look impressive compared to the white knights. They say knight on the rim is dim. Well, we've got two of them, two really dim looking knights, but in this particular position they've got a good purpose to try and revolve around the backward pawn here. So two central knights you'd think in general would be much better. It looks as though there's a white being outplayed here positionally. It's the structure, as Karpov has said, it's the foundation. It's difficult to move the structure, like the roots. It's difficult to move them once they're entrenched. So that is the structure of the position. Rook d4 parries the threat. And you can see that already, you know, it's a bit of a pain, this position, with the rook tied down to protect the c-pawn. We see knight c3, knight c5, officially blockading the c-pawn for a moment. Bishop f7. And the knights swap around. Knight a b7. A simplification, knight takes e2. In this structure, the bishop is a bit miserable. It's never going to be that great on light squares, surely. Is it condemned to a passive position on d5? So a5 is played here. The king gets out of the way. Okay, with king f2 there. Bishop d5. So it's defending c6. This looks rather solid. But does white have the prospects to sort of improve the position more than black? So a6 was played, and you might consider, well, that's a committal move. What if black didn't play a6? What if h6? It turns out, as an example, this is an example pro, but a6 from white, it seems white can gain advantage with b5 sometimes, and use this whole backward pawn and its protection as a kind of mechanism for transforming to another advantage at the right time. But this is only an example variation. But here you might argue, well, this is just theoretical, isn't it? Backward pawn and c5. What can white do with this? This variation shows, I'm about to show you, that sometimes white can swap the whole thing out because there's pressure on c6, right? Which leads to forcing moves. And forcing moves means you can sometimes transition one sort of advantage here into another. So this forcing move, dissolving the backward pawn, seemingly doing black a big favour, still leaves different types of weaknesses now. The rook's restricting the king on that 7th rank, and that transformation, you might think, well, at least there's a weak pawn, but that can be protected. It still leaves white much better here, winning material anyway. So that's another aspect, that the backward pawn and all its protectors, maybe there's a point where you can transform that into another advantage. So that's just one example variation though. So anyway, but Stockfish in its wisdom thought better not allow a6, because when you allow a6 you also allow b5 later with that, you know, dissolving mechanism that white could use at the right time. So a6 stops all of that. We see knight d6, rook e7, knight a4, and it seems the knights having a whale of a time here, the white knights. Sort of in full swing, so to speak. So knight f5, we see king e8. The king coming back towards the centre as if Leela wants really this king to be a major issue. The knight is not hitting that pawn. That rook's awkwardly protecting g7. It's starting to look rather awkward. We have knight c4 here, knight c5. And it looks, in this position already, there's a number of moves which simply lose for black here. I consider this is near Zugzwang, this position. If you remember the contrasting positions now of the knights when they're on a6 and a5, they're pretty fantastically placed now on c5 and f5. So have the roots of the position, that backward pawn, meant that the pieces can really have great career prospects later, because this is pretty fantastic here. Black committed to h5. Pawns don't go backwards. It's very difficult to teach Stockfish or the classical engines this, but it didn't want to do this really, it seems, because if we do other moves, they're horrible. King f8, can you see what white plays here for king f8? There's a weakness of the last move, leaving a piece protected. So 50 points, what would white play here? Bang, rook takes c4, and d8 would drop if bishop takes c4. If we look at rook a8, then that leaves a weakness to the last move. Thanks, knight takes g7. If we look at rook c8, then actually rook takes here and then knight d6, and thanks very much, that's winning more material. That's great for white. The two knights are having a great time there. That's material advantage for white. If we look at g6, then there's check and knight h6 check, and knight e6 check wins material there, forking king and rook. Because this position, the bishop's hanging in there, so the knight retracts back and the exchange up. Thanks very much. So it's a position which it seems compelled that black played this weakening pawn move. Doesn't seem to be much on for black there. Miserable, miserable. So we have knight g3, rook b8. If g6 here, just protecting the h5 pawn, then this hits f6, and in fact, there's a tactic here. Knight takes f6 and rook takes c4. So yeah, there's ways of winning tactically sometimes a pawn. So rook b8. We have knight d3 protecting b4, and now king f7. And now Leela did snap off this pawn, and g5 was played. So Stockfish has gone a pawn down. Yeah, Stockfish has just gone a pawn down. If it played rook h8, then the knight can go back to f4. And if, say, here, then knight here, and the problem is there's a meltdown now. The knights are controlling e6. There's no retraction for bishop e6. There's a meltdown on the d file. And the bishop's just it can't move anywhere. It's under great scrutiny. It's losing back the pawn basically, with a big advantage for white there positionally. So yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So we have actually after knight g3. Oh, sorry. So g5 was played, not rook h8. We have knight g3, so pawn up, thanks very much. Knight a3, rook c1, knight b5, rook g4. And now Leela make sure that not many YouTubers will ever cover this game, because we see a massive high-level waiting moves, high-level shuffling, as the expression goes, which I should really bring out a t-shirt for, high-level shuffling. Someone did say at the top of a building, but I don't like heights, I might not do that t-shirt, where someone's shuffling cards. But if you have any ideas for high-level shuffling for t-shirts, please let me know in the comments. So anyway, we get high-level shuffling here, which also means no YouTuber in their right mind would ever cover this game. But I'm just looking, from a purist perspective. How many videos on backward pawns with semi-open files are you likely to be convincingly instructed by? Well, probably a lot of Anatoly Karpov games, to be fair. He's well into torturing pawns. So anyway, let's carry on. So here, okay, the knights come off. So this is a critical moment of excitement where the knights come off at move 52. So leaving this rather passive piece, okay, it's not really going to be doing much. It's pretty predictable. Neural networks love torturing blocked in bishops in general. AlphaZero set that tone early on. It's like the bishops are the most kind of programmable pieces that the neural networks can torture or block in or whatever. Variety of torture methods. As far as Stockfish is concerned, it loves, I think, celebrating when there's no bishop of no counter bishop. But here, and again, this is the case. The bishop's a bit of a static feature of the position. It's not moving much. It's just the black rooks that are moving here, and Leela's seemingly probing a lot of possibilities. A lot of possibilities are being probed, even more being probed, maybe. And now the bishop moves. Okay. Bit of excitement there, and the bishop moves again, and the rook's made inroads to c5, blocking officially under lock and key the backward pawn. Rook e5, we see king g6, and this is starting to become very much like torture again after king c3. And Stockfish is like is realizing, I think, its own demise, and presses basically another self-destruct button here in the form of g4. But if g4 isn't played, and this is just one example, say bishop g8, white's going to make big progress in this position. Now that the king has protected the b4 pawn, it means the expensiveness of the rook is no longer needed there, and actually can do another duty to get to the d file with rook d2, rook d6, and pick up another pawn anyway. So Stockfish seems pretty much doomed here now that the king is protecting b4, releasing this rook for active duty. So we have g4. Yeah, Stockfish is basically being dismantled positionally in this game. So h takes g, f takes. We have rook e4 pinning that pawn to the rook. c5. This all looks very desperate from black. This move now creates a nice outside pass pawn after b5 from white. So a takes, we've got an outside pass pawn, trump card now. The trump cards are being accumulated. Apologies for using the word trump. It might not be the most appropriate time to use the word trump or lockdown. I don't know why. I don't know. Sometimes that happens. My vocabulary is influenced. We've had a lot more lockdown games than usual around this time. Anyway, so king h5, g3, rook h1, rook takes g4. So another pawn bites the dust. 2 pawns up. And we have rook a4, inviting exchange of rooks, and the pass pawn is used a bit there, it's protected there, and the king moves around and frees the rook from active duty here, protecting this pawn. Knight a4, okay, hitting c5. It seems c5 is on the cards. Once Leela can untangle, c5 might be a problem. Or is it here? Well, actually, it is here. Rook takes c5 because actually the knight is protected by the rook. So that's three pawns up at the moment. Okay, Stockfish can try and get maybe a6. It does get a6, but it is 2 connected pass pawns. Now, is this just standard technique here? It's 2 connected pass pawns, and we're only at move 98, so pretty short game to have a decisive advantage. So they say Leela's short. These games are sometimes too long. Well, Leela pads it out now, though. So let's see. Okay, so that pawn's pushed. It's standard technique, or is it? Let's have a look. Okay, rooks come off. Okay, and we do get a bit of messing around now. I think we've seen the positional demonstration already. So this is. By the by, the rook's exploring a roundabout here for some reason, wanting to trade itself off with the other rook. Okay. And another roundabout. Okay. Yes. Okay. There's not too much for me to say about this. These pawns surely are going to start moving down the board soon. I think I did see some of this live. The beauty of these long winding games, it really attracts the crowds eventually. The fascination of it all. The slow, patient progress. Some people use meditation, but you can also use very long Leela games perhaps to get that state of tranquility and centralization. And you'd think the g-pawn's going to be used at some point soon. And the rooks and knights starting to restrict that king, making inroads, knight g6. The king's coming in. It looks as though white is making real progress now. And here, yeah, short game by Leela standards. Only a move 181. King takes d8, and here actually it was resigned. So white was the winner here. So anyway. So yesterday I didn't really want to touch this game. I thought it's too big. Doesn't really represent anything too exciting. But no, it represents the meat and potatoes of chess. Backward pawns. Things to note about backward pawns philosophically, I would say. As Wiki has also noted, backward pawns get worse when the opponent also has a semi-open file. So they can really try and exploit that, put pressure on that. The pain of the backward pawns is that expensive pieces are protecting it when they could have been on other duties in the position, so it makes the position even more miserable. We saw a transition of 2 drunken knights in this game on a6 and a5 to 2 superb knights on c5 and f5. It seemed the backward pawns gave great career prospects to the knights here. The bishop was pretty passive for a lot of the game. It seems black was in near Zugzwang and had to lose a pawn, then later another pawn, so it was going 2 pawns down, and then Leela's technique kicked in. Okay, and then we have this rather short game by Leela standards, only 181 moves. So what more could you ask for from a positional chess game? What more? Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it just as much as me. If you want to challenge me for a game, kingscrusher.tv or bit.ly/chessworld. If we play the game at 5 days move and we play a game as big as this, it could last all year. Think about that. So anyway, no, I generally sometimes move within the time limit. There's also a suave chat forum at kingscrusher.tv/discord. There's a playlist bit.ly/Leela chess or bit.ly/Stockfish chess for shorter games, bit.ly/Magnus Carlsen chess. Those playlists to check out, for example. Okay, comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks so much.